Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We have a guest that we've been teasing on the show joining us tonight. And his name is the Skeptical Leftist, or as others know him, his name is Cory Johnston. And I'm going to say Cory Johnston only because I don't know if it's supposed to be Johnston or Johnson. And I didn't ask before the show, and because everybody knows I have the best words out of all the words on the podcast, we're going to go with it. And then we'll tweak it later on. But tonight is going to be a fun night. We get to talk about Canada for the first hour of the show. Hannah is not able to join us tonight due to a family commitment with his wife and daughters. So Hannah has the night off, but that's okay because we have another amazing host, and his name is Buddy the Elf. Welcome to the show, Buddy. It never gets old, man.
No, it really doesn't, does it? Ever.
Anyway, so we have a great episode lineup tonight. We have our guest here, Cory Johnston. Is it Johnston or Johnson?
It's Cory Johnston. So
okay.
There's a T there.
I just want to make sure. Well, because it could be a Canadian thing where it's silent. Like I don't know. I have no idea.
Yes, with our great silent T's.
Look, there's a lot of things in Canada land that I am not a privy to, but I could tell you I appreciate them more than I do my own nation 90% of the time.
That's what you appreciate.
Yes, it is. Especially that show. That's probably my favorite show now. In the whole world, actually.
Every Canadian actually knows people that are those characters on some level.
And that's probably what makes it really good. And like in my world, I used to work on a farm a little bit, but they were nobody drank. It was all like an ultra Christian like organizational thing. Like my boss used to preach to me, and all that type of thing. And then I worked at the farmer's market, so I would pick tomatoes or different things with him during the summer, and then on Saturdays and Wednesdays I would go actually sell the produce, and I had to help set everything up and blah 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 blah. But there is stereotypes like the Dans of the world. We had a Dan that worked with us without the accent, but it's just kind of funny because it's great that your guys your culture up there at least has that difference, and then there always seems to be a tinge of humor for the most part. At least that's what I can see. Even if you look at your politics, there's a tinge of humor in your politics. I mean, you have a very good-looking prime minister, but is he really the prime minister that anybody wants? I don't know. Hopefully you'll tell us.
I mean, if you compare him to other leaders, you'd rather him because you're not worried that he's going to try to incite a riot. So there's that.
Yeah. But anyway, so thank you so much for joining us tonight, Cory. It's great to have you on. I heard before the show you are on 3 podcasts. I was familiar with one, but not the other 2. So if you want to give a quick intro so everybody knows who you are, where they can find you, and kind of what you do, that would be amazing.
Sure. Yeah, I run my solo show is called The Mind of a Skeptical Leftist, and it's a combination of an interview show / my own personal thoughts. I talk to people to try and spread progressivism, leftist politics, and critical thinking. And then I've got a very local show from Many People's Strength. It's a Saskatchewan politics podcast with my friend David Richards, who is not a leftist but is a progressive. And then I've got Skeptarchy, which I do with Kevin Watson, Dell on Earth, and Eric Standing on the Road, or Eric Ray Standing is how he's known on the show. And basically that's like just a panel show. We talk about various topics from Canadian and American perspectives. So
Awesome. And I think that's I think that's kind of the crux of it. You're like kind of covering a spectrum, for the most part. It's funny when you say the difference between a leftist and a progressive. And so you got to tell me in Canadian terms, right? I hope that's not offensive, but in Canadian terms, what's the difference between a progressive and a leftist? Like, is it the exact same as it is in America, or is there like a big distinct difference?
I think you would have to ask, like, if an American leftist would have the same distinctions that I have. If you are still a capitalist, then you are a progressive. If you're a leftist, you're an anti-capitalist.
Okay. All right. So in America, it's a little different because, your leftist here is a generic term that is used for anything, right?
Oh, okay.
It does not specifically mean anti-capitalist. So, for example, if I'm probably the more liberal of the hosts on the show per se, I'm pretty much like a social anarchist. I fall in that bottom left quadrant pretty aggressively, whereas Hannah is like a democratic socialist. So, I guess I'm the leftist, but in America, everybody goes, he's a leftist too. And all of
Right.
everybody in here would be leftist, and my wife's a leftist, even though she's kind of like a centrist Democrat, So
Yeah,
in America, leftist is just a derogatory term, I think.
your Overton window is so far to the right that nothing makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like when
think
they say
the big
you're an anarchist, they don't understand what am I going to do, like to destroy. I'm going to destroy capitalism through violence. Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. If it takes that, sure, but that's not what I want.
That's not the goal.
No. So it's just kind of funny.
For sure.
Yeah, I think one of the big differences between like progressives and leftists here is like liberals and NDP, because the liberals in my lifespan has always been, the liberals are the ones who were supposed to be like right down the middle of the road, a good balance between, the conservatives who were obsessed with the economy and the NDP who, were demonized and accused of being every bad or every pejorative you've associated with the communists, even though they've never actually been quite that far left. But I think in Canada, when you say leftist, you're meaning like NDP and then further left, so NDP, Green, Communist parties, those types. And then when you say like progressive, you're thinking more like liberal. So you nod and you smile and wave at the progressive or at the leftists, and then you go and do business with the conservatives. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, I think from where I sit, I would even put the NDP as like closer to the center, right?
Fair,
because
fair.
they're still that neoliberal capitalist kind of political bent, right?
True. Although to their credit, like Jugmeat has done a lot to try to put forward, the
Agreed.
message of like universal pharmacare, healthcare, and something that I kind of brought into the notes for the episode is, they proposed a wealth tax on people over $20 million and tried to close up a bunch of the Harper era loopholes that existed, but that didn't go very well.
And oddly enough, the liberals voted against it the same way the conservatives did.
Oh,
That's weird.
That's just unheard of. So we've, let's see, talked a little bit about your show. Oh my goodness, I forgot to update those notes. My apologies. There was something that was really interesting, and I kind of mentioned to you that I was hoping to talk about it because you go into a lot of your circles, and you've got your obviously radical, violent mongering flag going on behind you. You had a recent issue with a forum, but for communists. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Well, I mean, it's not a great story, But
That's an
apparently,
interesting one.
apparently in the R Communist subreddit, anarchists aren't allowed to post or answer questions. Uh, so when somebody asked, can a lawyer be a communist? And I was like, yeah, you can do that. We need more lawyers who are communists. My answer could not be posted, and it was deleted. And then I got a message from the moderator saying, yeah, anarchists aren't allowed to post here. So I was like, okay, well then what am I doing here?
And it's weird because you actively you said, yeah, no, we should see more communists doing that. You weren't saying down with communism, anarchy for life, word, and
No, that's
whatever
right. Like,
signs.
yeah, I am an anarchist. I'm not a state communist. But communism, the philosophy of ownership of everything belonging to everyone, that's I don't see a problem with promoting that and being an anarchist.
Well, yeah, I
And
mean, they kind of go hand in hand.
that's what I would think.
So,
State communists are a weird like type of person though.
okay, maybe I'm just not as aware. So we know that Tanner himself could not post an r/communism. Okay, so that's established. But like, what? So you're throwing out saying difference between like state communism and anarcho-communism. Now I've heard a little bit about anarcho-communism, but I've never really dove too deep into either camp because I'm still trying to figure out where the hell my feet land. And I haven't quite gotten that far to the end of the spectrum. So help me here. Do I belong on either side?
Well, it depends. Do you think that the power that there should be a state or like that controls everything?
I mean, right now, yes, but when we evolve and become smarter and less primitive, I think we could handle a little less of a daddy voice or a big brother going on around us. I think we might be able to be trusted to wear our damn masks and stay inside because there's a health crisis going on. That's interesting.
State communists that I have encountered are like generally I call them state communists because too many people are just calling them authoritarian communists. They're the type of people that you might see defending Stalin or saying that Xi Jinping in China is doing, a wonderful job. So these are state communists, and I don't like to call them authoritarians because they dismiss you as soon as you do that. But they believe in a very strong state and a very strong military, and often they believe in a very strong police force. And I'm an anarchist, so to me, a cop is a cop. I don't care what color suit he's wearing. It could be a red cop. He's still a cop, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to that larger, broad symbol. And how about this? And I guess I don't know. I'm trying not to side tangent us, but like think of it this way: like my political spectrum leans a specific way based on the current times.
Yes,
my political spectrum actually changes the difference of how our society would evolve or change. And I can use an example. For example, as an anarchist, I'm very against police. I'm against anything that polices it as a state-run government. I believe in community-ran enforcement with a little bit of state backing or Fed backing as needed. And for example, like I don't think you should get rid of the police force. I think we should redirect what they spend their time on. Like, and I'll give another example. Here, we can't park in my neighborhood on the street between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. 4 hours all year round. It doesn't matter. Some of it's a plow thing, because that's when they run the plows. So that makes sense. But they
street sweepers.
Yeah, yeah, we have those too. But they give you a $5 ticket, and so for example, last Saturday and Friday, my buddy came over. He got drunk, had to spend the night at my house. Friday night, he goes out, moves his car. It's about 3 a.m. Cop goes, oh, you're pulling it in and I won't give you a ticket. Just consider it a warning. Young pup leaves, comes back the next night, sees 2 cars out front of my house. He's got another buddy over drinking, and we're going outside to pull the cars in because we finally figured out, oh shit, you got to move the cars in. And he wrote my buddy a ticket for $5. He's like, I already told you, you should have listened. And it's like, come on, man. Like, I mean, you're literally going to spend 40 minutes of your time, you're that bored, to issue a citation. Now, I live in a very, medium scale, upscale neighborhood. So, like, I mean, we're a historic district, but still, for Christ's sake, I mean, I don't have all these things out in my yard. My house looks decent. I'm not missing too much siding. But, like, that's why I don't believe in long story short, that's why I have a hard time with cops, because there's a waste of taxpayer dollars. There's a waste of all these other things. We don't have fire people that patrol the streets. Like, they don't patrol the streets going, is there a fire? Oh, they got a fire in the backyard. I better sit over here and wait. Come on.
Literally looking for people to turn into criminals.
Yeah. And in my neighborhood, the worst thing they can find is, drunks walking from the bar home, which can happen. Because you can walk to the bar from my house, and then cars parked on the street, or drunk drivers. You could probably find drunk drivers, but they're out there doing that. Versus, what do we spend our tax money on? But if we created community systems and worked, and again, my community probably doesn't need it at first. They need to go into Grand Rapids, Michigan, and deal with it, into Detroit and deal with it, because they need to get rid of the systematic racism. But if they did those things, my position would move a little bit farther to the right, saying, okay, once we have these communities in place, I'm still okay with the police being here. I just want them redefined and out of everyday life unless it's absolutely necessary.
I think that's fair. I tend to be of the mindset where I view the world in terms of end goals, right? So end goal, I don't want any police. I want a world where that's not necessary. But even in that world, there would end up being situations where you would need somebody who could handle somebody who was out of control, perhaps, like whether that's a social worker type person who's dealing with a mental health break, or people who can deal with drug overdoses. There's going to be necessary people in these roles. It's just not police.
Well, and it shouldn't be police in the first place, right? Because, I mean, you can't have somebody who's supposed to be judge, jury, and executioner roaming the street. I mean, we don't have Judge Dredd roaming around. And, I mean, responding to a domestic disturbance calls, I've had friends who were involved in those, and, the police show up and they're literally just there to show force and separate and simply act as a physical deterrent, not a party to help rebuild and restore and heal what's going on. I mean, yes, odds are separating the two, domestically disturbing parties is probably for the best, but, just letting them or just, showing force and be like, oh, you guys got to be separate, blah, blah, blah. Now you're going through the legal system, instead of, okay, well, like, this is what's going on. This is the problem. How can we move forward? How can we, rebuild the situation?
Yep.
Sorry, Tanner brought up a great question here that was commented on our Facebook feed from Lawrence there, and he says, what practical ways do you currently practice the idea that property belongs to everyone? In other words, do you not believe you actually own property?
Well, I mean, I don't actually own any property. not in the property sense. Like, I own items, but personal property is not the same as private property, which is a distinction that anarchists and communists often make when we're talking about. Nobody says that we have to all share a toothbrush, but maybe we shouldn't have. Maybe we should have transit systems or like car sharing systems, so nobody actually has to own a car, and that would reduce the number of cars on the road, and just stuff like that. I mean, technically right now I own a car under the current legal system. But yeah, if we actually ever had a change in our society, then that would be great. As far as what I do in a practical way in my day-to-day life, I mean, I give what I can to those that I know need it, and that's all I can do at this point.
Well, I think, and I guess I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit, because there's some things where I understand that mentality, right? But I also empathize with that other side that, like, I own a house.
Right.
And I would not want somebody to walk into my house and say, well, because we all own it, I'm not going to live with you. Even if they were non-harmful. Like, I get
Right.
some of the fears. And so, like, I think, like, on my side, the answer is not that property, nothing belongs to you. I think the idea is that we figure out a way to limit self-wealth, right? So let's just say you had a $500,000 wealth concept, right? And this might blow people's mind, because that's not a lot of money, but it is to a lot of other people. Like, people making 30 grand a year have a $500,000 cap. Like, they'll
never hit that.
Yeah, they'll never hit that. Just like in my world, I'll never see $1 million ever. Like,
Right.
It's just never a thing that's going to happen unless stocks really go good for me. And I'm not even putting very much money in. I didn't do the whole GameStop thing, so I didn't make anything. But
a lot of people lost money on that too.
Exactly, yeah. And so the idea is, and I'm not saying 500 is the key word. I'm saying is, what do we do to limit wealth and property distribution? How do we remove capital, or not capitalism, but corporations from being people? Because that's a thing in America. And those are my two cruxes of it. Because, like, if you own 7 houses, you
don't need 7 houses. Yeah.
I mean, not to be a dick, but just like, and I say this, like, Kobe O'Brien, what's his house worth, right?
Yeah. No.
Does he need that big of a house? Maybe. Is it, because he can spend the money, he's spending the money. But you don't really need that big of a house.
No.
I understand, again, the privacy, because he's a celebrity. Should these people be able to be afforded a different status of privacy than you and me? And that's a different debatable question.
Yeah.
Because if we just didn't have celebrities, we wouldn't have this fucking problem.
Exactly.
I don't think you can get away from that in our current society's mentality, let's say.
Yeah, we have a long way to go.
Yes. And people idolize things. I mean, and again, for Christ's sake, look at Bernie Sanders. He's idolized. And some of the people that follow him are almost as distasteful as Trump supporters. Period.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
I don't know what's the Bernie Sanders of Canada. I don't think we've ever had that. I want to know who the Bernie Sanders of Canada is, and Keith, you need to get him on the show. I want to talk to the Bernie Sanders of Canada.
Actually, I don't know about the Bernie Sanders per se, but I can think of a politician who I think might be actually worthwhile trying to see if we could score an interview with her. I think she'd be worth it. Janice Irwin of the NDP in Alberta, but I don't even think she's in Calgary. I'd have to look into that. She clapped back at the PC government and basically called them out for how poorly they've handled this, and that they've spent more time trying to push their own agenda than actually dealing with everything that's been going on with COVID, which I thought was just fantastic. It was beautifully done. But yeah, Cory, who do you think that would be?
I actually don't know if we have one really. Like the thing about Canadian politics.
Is this like a Canadian conundrum?
Canadian politics isn't dynamic. there's almost nothing interesting. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, she's not quite as distinct, but maybe like Elizabeth May, but she just doesn't have the same charisma.
Yeah.
See,
I don't know.
I don't care as much about the charisma aspect, right? I'm just saying is who's the populist that's pushing progressive or leftist policies. That's not crazy and insane, right? Because Bernie is a little out there for a lot of people, honestly. For our general public, obviously, because he couldn't win the fucking, general election. But
yeah,
at the moment, I don't think we have a left, like a populist on the left like that. Like we we have a variety of much smaller figures who are along the same philosophical lines that have run for various party positions in the Green Party and or the NDP. Jagmeet Singh is as close as we're going to get at this time, I think. But
I mean,
still
I'd,
think,
I'd be okay with that.
yeah, sure.
I just have a raging man crush on him, so
Well, that's fair.
it's just,
He is
it's
a beautiful man.
Oh, he's unbelievably like just unreal, and he's so witty too. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna go down that road and just just fanboy a little bit.
So okay, so if there isn't, let's get into Canadian politics for a second, right?
Ooh.
And if there isn't a Bernie Sanders, and I guess for the audience, like just trying to depict the two difference of political opinion. I know you guys have to report to the Queen and all, so I mean, there's that. But besides that thing, so you're telling me that there's a few more options that the majority of the people are more middle of the road, and your extremist groups are not to the same standard as America. And I'm gonna cite this with before Trump was in power, the Republican Party was not as outrageous about certain types of things, right?
Right.
So think of it pre-Trump, because we're almost going to probably see a split of some sort. I don't see the Republicans backing another Trump-like figure, honestly. So think of it that way. So if you take American politics, we have a 1.1%, maybe 2% Libertarian Party that gets votes, right? And we have a Green Party that usually gets less than 1%, and that's usually our progressive party. And our Libertarian Party is our very pro-capitalism, anti-government established, party. And that's our percentages in our mix. And the most loud until Trump came really was the libertarians screaming to say, why can't we have a better Republican Party? So how relate this to Canadian terms for me?
Okay. Yes. I think we could do that. I just pulled up the breakdown of the last federal election just to kind of give a hint.
Okay.
Because we would have the Liberals and the Conservatives, which I think federally speaking, like those two are the equivalent of the Republicans and Democrats. What do you think?
The Liberals would be your Democrats, and the Conservatives would be your Republicans. Your old school Mitch McConnell type Republicans. Maybe slightly less capitalist, because we still have nationalized health care.
That's true.
But yeah, I guess that's still kind of the equivalent, I guess.
And then like they had their Green Party. Where did you say they were at, Tanner?
Our Green Party always comes in less than 1%. So,
okay.
That's probably comparable to our Green Party.
Yeah.
Well,
ours doesn't. We have a few figures that have been pretty like Ralph Nader, for example, was a very, very prominent, progressive, right? And he's not really that progressive, but he was the most progressive. But once he's out of the party, they haven't had a lot of success on a populist side the same way he had. And I'll say I voted for Ralph when I was very young versus John Kerry, because I hated John Kerry so much. And I was young and idealistic,
That's fair.
Adorbs. If we lump our NDP and Green parties together, and we're going to completely forget the Bloc Québécois because they only represent one province.
Yeah, even though that, they're still like the third largest party in the country.
Yeah, which always amazing. Quebec does have like almost a third of the population, or a little over a third of the population, which is weird to think about.
Yeah.
So for the sake of argument and comparison, we'll lump NDP with Green together. And in our last election, they actually had about 22% of the vote. which is
Okay.
it's refreshing to see. And I mean, they was that 20% of the seats? Okay. Nope, it's a vote. Sorry, I didn't quite understand the breakdown of the numbers I was looking at in the chart here. And then we have the People's Party, which were my favorites to watch because they are the Gary Johnsons of Canada. They just say it in an accent.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I don't know if you watched the leadership debate. It was the first time I had watched one, and I did a breakdown for the show. And watching Maxine antagonize Scheer was just the highlight reel for me. Because
Yeah, I only watched the highlights of it. I was not. I didn't want to have to watch Andrew Scheer and Maxime Bernier.
If you have a dark sense of humor, that was perfect. Because like just you could see Shears was just like so uncomfortable anytime Bernier talked to him, because Bernier was like, you call yourself a conservative, but here you are doing this, that, and this, unlike a conservative and more like a socialist. And there's Scheer going, Trudeau's a poopy head. Yeah, see, poopy head. Yeah, this guy. And that was like all he could do, and it was so embarrassing for him, and it was great. So they actually only had like 1% of the vote too, so that comparatively speaking, the weird uncles who wear khakis and everybody only sees at big holiday gatherings because everybody else is uncomfortable around them otherwise. So they only make up 1% of the vote.
They would be like our Trump party, which is
see, and it's weird to think because we almost had Kevin O'Leary, and
yeah.
He was Trump without the personality, and accusing Trump of having a personality is saying something big. Yeah, he's actually a semi-successful business person in comparison to Trump, who is like a multiple failed business person. So I mean, at least we could have said that, if O'Leary had won.
If something had happened, if something bad had happened.
Yeah, I never understood why he didn't really make it. Was it scandal that forced him out of the leadership race?
I think, didn't he drop out before it actually came to a vote? I think he just lost interest, or maybe it was, there was something about a boat, I think. I can't remember.
I like that. Well, let's see here. The internet's great. It's great having the internet. I can answer my questions in real time. I just have to stall long enough to find my answer.
Just riff.
That's asking me to do a lot with very, very limited brain power. Front runner in the polls that time, but dropped out, citing a lack of support in Quebec, which is pathetic because really nobody's going to get support in Quebec unless they're Bloc Québécois.
Pretty much, yeah.
So that was weird, but that's okay. Yikes! Yeah, Canadian politics. It's semi-boring though.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, the way we used to refer to it was we'd say that our conservatives were like the Democrats, the liberals were like left of that, and then anything else like the NDPs and the Greens, everything a little bit farther left. I mean, we're just our Overton window in Canada is just farther to the left than in the US. But things have shifted a little bit over the last little while, like because we adapt to the culture of the United States so much. Then
why do you do that? I mean, you don't have a Boris Johnson, so there's always that. Like at least you don't have Boris Johnson. Like I'm actually very surprised they did not evict his ass out of England and just send him directly into Canada. They're like, hey, your guys' accents are close enough. You get him. He's yours. The Queen dictated this.
Yeah.
Well, that's how that
works, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know how monarchy is nonsense. I don't know how it works.
Well, all right. So I have a question, right? Because you are a leftist, right? So you obviously fall outside of this normal reign of politics, even in your own country.
Yeah.
I could tell you based in my life that Justin Trudeau right now would be even better than a Joe Biden. I can't say he would be as good as a Bernie Sanders or an Elizabeth Warren. But I will tell you that between some of the imagery, the fact that I don't see him pushing large oil and war deals, those are two positive things. And he pushes the social norms in accepting LGBTQA rights, right?
Yeah,
We don't
like
get that.
yeah, he puts on the show of progressivism. He's a feminist. He kneels at Black Lives Matter rallies. He'll march in Pride marches. But then he goes and he'll buy a pipeline for private industry and force it through indigenous lands. And he doesn't start wars, but he always will support the United States if they are in one. Stuff like that. We're an imperial country. Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party, they supported Juan Guaido in Venezuela over Nicolas Maduro, despite the fact that Nicolas Maduro had won the election, because it serves our interests, much like imperial United States does. So, so there's, so I mean, he's a neoliberal capitalist prime minister, just like Joe Biden.
All right. So what? Okay. So you're saying that because he supports the U.S. when we make very very conservative choices, right? And I get that, but what about spending cuts? What about taxation? I mean, does he support large capital works? Does he support is he big into oil?
Yes.
Again, he's not fighting overseas, but if he's into oil, then it's kind of, I mean, so now we lose the green aspect of it. I mean, I wish I could put like a little picture card of Trudeau and all the progressive things, and then I could just go, nope. Yep, exactly. I'm not that good with this system.
He talks a really good game, and he's very politically adept. Like, he's a very clever person. It's unfortunate that he also just happens to support like the status quo and yeah, I mean, he is big into oil. He was really embroiled in a big controversy this year, this in 2020, because he gave a contract to a company that he just happened to be friends with the owners, and his mom worked for them or something. Like, it was this big deal because of the insider nepotistic training. Then he gives this giant contract to his buddy, basically. And yeah, I mean, compared to Trump, it was not news at all.
Yeah.
Well, I think some of that can change though, right? Because as Trump has not really made a splash anywhere in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, roughly, that could change. I think it depends on how long he stays silent. But I'll be honest, even before Trump, Trudeau never, like, this stuff didn't come out. If I wasn't friends with Buddy, I wouldn't know some of these things at all.
Right.
Honestly. Because the news cycle doesn't pick it up. And then, that opens up a whole nother can of worms, right? Like, why is the news segments not picking it up? And I could argue that there's certain times you have to side with other countries, whether it's a progressive thing or not, right? And I understand the logic in that. But if he doesn't check the other boxes, right, it's illogical. And like last week we talked about, was it Norway, Keith? That's who we talked about. That had
Sounds about right.
Yeah, they essentially have all of these stocks and bonds, and they play the market. And that's how they pay for their socialism. And it's like, well, so they're using capitalism to pay socialism. What the fuck? Like, I get it, you got to do it, but come on, like, let's not pretend to be progressive then, Yeah,
you're still profiting off of the exploitation of the labor force.
Yeah.
And probably third world countries. And, not that Okay, I don't like the term third world countries, developing countries.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's because actually Norway, I don't think, is like socialist. They have really strong social safety nets, right?
Mhm.
They have a good social programs, but they don't have a system where the workers themselves are in control of the means of production.
Yep. And
They are
that's-
not
and,
friends with Marx.
I don't know. So where do we go from here, Keith? I mean, is there so like
Well,
we've
we
you're telling me he's not worth two shits. That's what I'm hearing.
That's how I feel.
I mean, well, the funny thing is like I'll freely admit I voted for the Liberal Party in the last federal election. As much as I want to vote my conscience, I know that my conscience ain't gonna do shit if I vote that way. Especially because I live in Alberta, and federally speaking, the party that I wanted to win, my beautiful, beautiful Jagmeet Singh, would not have stood a chance. My vote really wouldn't have gone towards supporting a party that stood a chance at maybe, possibly, kind of, maybe eking out just a little bit of a head of Conservative. It didn't. But the Liberal Party was the party that stood the best chance on the federal level. However, in the provincial level, NDP, that was the party to vote for if you didn't want to vote Conservative, because they could have taken that seat. So admittedly, yeah, I did have to vote, and I swallowed my pride, and I did vote for the Red Party, the Liberals.
I also voted Liberal in my area. I had a chance of having the only non-conservative seat in Parliament. Keith, you might know who Ralph Goodale is. He was running in my area, and he's won for a very long time. He's won over and over and over again. But even still, he lost this time, and we had 0 non-conservative seats in Saskatchewan. So apparently it doesn't matter what my politics are.
Yeah, no kidding. Just trying to find, because I think Alberta was almost exactly the same, although I think it may have been in Edmonton that we had one parliamentary riding that had a NDP vote. Goodness gracious, I already had this up and still end up losing my damn window. Carry on talking without me, because I'm just distracted, and I'm going to derail everything and waste a lot more time than necessary. There we go, 2019. So let's break this down by Alberta. Yeah, so it was in Edmonton where we had the only non-conservative riding in Alberta. And it was just like this one small riding. Everywhere else, it was completely blue. Even half of BC was blue, and that's always kind of shocked me. But I guess Albertans go deep enough into BC that we kind of corrupt.
They have a lot of rich people in BC. So they vote Conservative. They tend to vote Conservative because they don't want to be taxed. And various other issues. But
we're without Tanner for a few minutes.
Yeah,
here.
It looks like we lost Tanner.
Yeah, I was looking at Ralph Goodale there. Okay, well that's okay. We've still got almost 20 minutes to keep, talking about the complicated relationship that we have with our prime minister, and like you said, he's a great showman. And I think that frustrates me because one of the biggest critiques, of course, is make Trudeau teach drama again, and it's like, yeah, okay, he taught drama, big friggin' whoop,
I don't know if I've cursed on this show. I don't know what your policy is, but there are stickers.
Go right the hell ahead.
Okay, so the common refrain in Saskatchewan and Alberta is "fuck Trudeau."
Yep,
and it's from the right. It's a terrible. I don't know. They're idiots, and I can't take them seriously because they put "fuck Trudeau" on their phone cases and their truck stickers on their truck, and they do this over and over again. But they have no real arguments. They have no idea about how to improve things. All they know is that he's not on their team, and their team portrayed him as a villain. Therefore, he sucks. But from the left, we can actually say, like, he's not improving the lives of working people. He talks about it. We have no supports from, like, compared to the US, we have had a lot of support during the pandemic, but those supports ended, and then they became things where they were means tested, and people who didn't get them or who got them without the right criteria are now having to pay those back. And there's a, I'm just going on a bit of a rant here, but it's like there's not to be insulting, but I don't want to be comparing ourselves to the United States. We can do better. We have to do better, and we have no support from our government currently. Like the unemployment rate here, at least, is higher than it's been throughout the entire pandemic. Like, it's actually higher now than it was in April, and we still have no supports, and we're too reliant as a country on oil because that's been a major driver, and somehow we forgot to diversify. And this is all stuff that falls on the heads of our elected leaders.
Absolutely. Yeah. Alberta is currently, and I think
I hope that made sense.
a good portion of this is also because of COVID. Our unemployment rate is up as well. But I mean, even pre-COVID here, one of the things that I'm looking at is unemployment had already started going up in early last year.
Because the oil was not where they wanted it.
Yep, exactly. So let's see, the NDP. When did the NDP take power here in Alberta? What the hell? Anyways, so before the Conservatives took the province back, the unemployment rate was down right around 6.3%, and then it gradually started creeping back up again, and then it was up over like 7.5%. A year ago, and now it's more than doubled. It's at almost 16%. It went to 16% in June, and I mean now. Okay, so now it's at like 10.7% in Alberta. But that was what our Conservatives ran their campaign on, was we're gonna get back to work and this, that, and the other. But what Kenny wasn't saying was that he was also really not going to be doing anything to help create jobs. All he was going to do is he gave billions of dollars in tax breaks to big companies, and then was it Encana up and took 10,000 jobs out of the country that, like, within days of getting billions of dollars in tax breaks. So how exactly is that helping get Albertans back to work? And every time
it's just like the thing about the support for the pandemic and unemployment is that a lot of the money went to bosses. They went to companies, and then those companies continued to lay people off. Like Bell Media just laid off something like 10,000 employees. Like after getting a giant payout. Like it's just like the United States. Like, it's no different.
Yeah. No, it's really not. We just have a prettier face running the show. And that's creepy.
Yeah.
Well, I think, so that kind of leads into changes you would make, right? So we talk about these things all the time, right? And I was actually going to ask you, did you vote Liberal, Cory? I was going to ask you that. I know how you did. I didn't know how you voted. And I wanted to have that conversation a little bit too. So you can't be that much of a leftist if you at least voted for your conservative Democratic Party.
I did the calculus that we do, right? Because we're afraid of what the right is going to do. We're afraid of what's going to happen if the Conservatives get into power. And as long as that keeps happening and the other powerful party is the Liberals, we'll keep voting them in. We need somehow to get like an assurance, a poll numbers that's going to say like the NDP might actually stand a chance. But until that happens,
Well, and I think I have like two challenges, I guess, per se, right? One, how do you as an individual, and this is our show this year is dedicated to having this one specific conversation of how do I continue to move the Democratic Party in America left, right? So that I can continue to vote for them on the national scale. to help maintain not getting another Trump in office. You know, I mean, getting a conservative office is bad, but we couldn't even get rid of Mitch McConnell. So for fuck's sake, we're
Right.
still behind the 8 ball here, folks. But so challenge number 1 to you is okay, if we look at this, how do you feel we'll call it short-term, mid-term, and long-term games need to be played to move that needle farther? And then the second, thing I have, and this is a little bit more of a caveat, right? Because in business, I work in manufacturing a lot, in warehousing. That's my background. And when we move the needle, the goal is not to move the needle from point A to point B as fast as you can all the time.
Right.
So because large changes usually create larger headache. And I can give an example. When I worked for a furniture manufacturing company, they said, your department's going to find $200,000 of savings this year. And when one of the changes we requested, they said, nope, that's way too much change. Go back to the drawing board and do it this way. Because it would have cost them, probably almost $200,000 to get that same set of savings. But year over year over year, the returns would come faster. But if I made slow incremental changes, it would save them enough money every year where they didn't have to actually spend out of pocket, and the return for them would be higher each year to hit their stupid goal of X amount of dollars of savings. They didn't care about long term. They only cared about short term. So in politics, we all operate in the same mode, right? Like if we move too far too fast, we could upset a balance. We don't know. I don't see it, but it's probably there. It's probably there.
Yeah. It's important to be pragmatic on some level, right? Like we got to be. We have a whole. It doesn't matter how much to the left I am. We have a whole society that isn't as far left as me. Mm-hmm. So I have to work within the systems that exist and with the people that I work with in order to make any progress. As far as what do I think? Sorry, what was the first thing? Like it was like
the first. Sorry. So the first thing is if you take the second thing out of it, right? We got to move incrementally. What's your short-term, middle-term, and long-term goals? Like, what do you see as being, for Canada, the best moves that you guys could make to help move that needle from, we'll call it centrist liberal, to, we'll even call it democratic or progressive liberal, right? Whichever one you want to say.
I mean, if we're talking about how do I get the politics that I believe in pushed forward,
yes,
then I think that part of it needs to be that we need more public leftists. We need more people and more parties and more participation by people on the far left. We just started actually an all communist party here in Saskatchewan. And now, like, that was a thing that I've been looking for the last 3 years. And now we have one. And as this thing grows, then we can, perhaps become more active in the actual mainstream parties. As far as so on the short term, I'd say we need to just get more faces out there, more people talking about our politics. In the mid range, I'd say we want to get involved in electoral politics on some level. If we can get into existing parties, then we can do that. If we need to create our own parties and campaign and get donations to try and build a following, then we can do that. And long term, I want an overthrow of the capitalist regime.
Viva la revolution!
I think that we have to be realistic too. Like, I know a lot of my fellow anarchists are really, they talk a lot about revolution, and they really just hate the idea of incremental gain. And I know that it feels like incremental gain often just doesn't work because you take 2 steps forward and it's 3 steps back. And as long as you're playing this game with the right and centrists, then you're always moving backwards or you're staying stagnant. But I think that we are making progress. And I think that the more we talk about this, the more progress we can make.
Fair enough. So, I think the big thing here, right, you know, Cory, and I know we have a time constraint, so I want to be respectful of your time tonight. You know, but I think the big thing here is I get the idea that we shouldn't be as scared about non-incremental change, but what I would always pose, and this is because this is where it gets a little bit dirtier, right? I'm a statistics guy. I'm a guy that goes, prove it, right? And I'm not saying I'm going to give you a position of power to prove it. I'm saying, and this is the sad thing, because if I gave you the position of power and you fail, it harms a lot of people, right?
Yep.
You can actually harm a lot of people. And this is a big debate in philosophy and politics for years and years and years, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing new. And that's why incremental changes is very big in politics. But you're telling me I can move faster. So the idea becomes, and this is the sad thing, is how do we get capitalism out of this? Because if we look, for example, Elon Musk is a shit human being for the most part, but he has done some really good things. For example, he's launched a satellite business to give people internet. That's positive. What is he doing with everybody's data behind the scenes? If he collects it, I don't know. I can't guarantee you he's doing that. Is it really good that we have a $1 billion corporation owning satellites in our orbiting?
I think he's just sending our browsing history back to his home planet.
You know, but the reality of it is, though, giving internet to people in rural areas and allowing them to test this internet for free to see if it helps benefit their lives, that's huge.
It is.
Where the fuck's our goddamn government doing this? That's what I'm saying. Why don't we put Comcast and AT&T and T-Mobile out of business and do this? But we don't. So how do we change that then? How do you go about this? If we need money to make change and I'm not going to give you a political position of power, how do you as an individual create an example of bigger incremental change than what we're seeing right now?
How do I create, like, you want some kind of evidence that that a bigger change than, say, what's happening right now will be beneficial?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
It's a tough
I
one.
mean, yeah, it is. It is.
Move.
Especially like off the top of my head.
Welcome to Cellular Skeptics, baby.
But I think that if one looks, I think that we can find evidence for like things like higher tax rates on wealth and higher distribution of income and higher spending on various products by the government. Like you say, like maybe we can't put out TELUS and Bell and all these companies out of business tomorrow, but if we tax them and the government starts doing this as a service to its citizens, I mean, the step is you need the political will to actually take that step. Nobody's going to be hurt by taxing Elon Musk more.
Nope.
So that's a good first step, I think.
And I think that's right. So I give you the hard questions. The idea is and I say this very, sad because I don't, sometimes like Hannah doesn't challenge me aggressively enough. I'm the guy usually that's the far leftist in the show. So when I have a guy that comes on that basically said he's almost a communist and he likes the Communist Party, I got to challenge you a little bit because it's like, whoa, hold on, man. I don't even say I'm a communist, for fuck's sake. But I think it's important, though, to challenge that line of thinking, right, Cory? Because I think those are the questions that we get from the middle of the road people, right? Like my wife and I disagree with whether you should punch a Nazi or not. That's a fact. I think you should always punch a Nazi. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care about the ramifications. That's just me. My wife is, a little bit more on the idea that that's probably not the most positive thing that can happen, and you understand it gives them recourse to do.
She's also not wrong there. Like,
No,
no,
not.
she's not wrong. That's it's not the most positive thing that can happen. But I'm still gonna punch a Nazi.
You are, and I'm still punching Nazi. So like, I don't know what I feel like we should just like have a video of punching Nazis right now. That's what I feel I should just find that, but I'm not gonna do that. But you
You're gonna get
understand my
offense on
point
that.
though. Like, Cory, we as fellow socialists, as people that are very against capitalism and this very slow momentum, we need to be able to come up with how can we model things. And I think your example is a very ingenious way, because the amount of harm that it does is nullified.
Yeah.
If I take half of his wealth, half of Bill Gates' wealth, half of, who's the guy, Jeff Bezos, right?
Yeah.
If we take these people's wealth away, can they still afford their 70 houses that they have and their 200 cars and their 14
100%,
mistresses
yeah.
or whatever the fuck they spend their money on? I don't. Their cocaine. Maybe they all have fancy cocaine that we just don't have. Maybe they have like
Fancy
this,
Gold
cocaine?
laced,
yeah, they
gold laced
have- it's
cocaine.
like gold laced cocaine, or maybe it's like somebody's like deconstructed it so it doesn't have the negative effects on your body, but has a positive effect. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
They've got the limitless drug.
There you go. Yeah. Or maybe
Oh,
they have
shit.
technology like that Tenet movie where they can like reverse things, and they can have reverse ice
Right.
cubes. Reverse
Yeah.
ice cubes is genius. Like maybe I would be a Bill Gates if I could get reverse fucking ice cubes for my whiskey. I don't know. Only
Yeah.
certain one.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's both important to talk about the end goals, like a utopian society with no capitalism and no police, and also talk about short-term goals, like you say, like where we just need to get somebody with the political will to tax these billionaires, at least so that we can start funding some actual societal good.
Nope. And I think that, like I said, I think that's an extremely valid point. And I think that's a great first step if that's, what we have to do. And if you listen to American politics or whatever, that's what you hear a lot of. And
Yeah.
you get more buy-in from the centrists on that, as long as you start specifying a dollar amount. You almost got to hit that $500,000 fucking dollar
Right.
amount before people, like my mother-in-law, or my ex-mother-in-law, and I argued, she's a huge Biden, Hillary supporter, all this other crazy stuff. And, I was like, yeah, we should tax the rich. She's like, well, only certain rich people, anybody that makes over 500K. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm saying anyone who makes over 100K should get taxed higher. What the fuck are you
Yeah,
talking
right.
about?
That's the
You
whole
know?
point of a progressive tax.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, well, what if you ever make 100K in a year? I was like, well, when I get to that level, if I ever do, I'm probably okay with them taxing me a
Then
little
I
bit
will
more.
pay those taxes.
Yeah. I mean, I've always paid my damn taxes anyway, so, whatever, but I don't know. Anyway,
The trouble is that you need a system where if you are a person who makes 100K, and then the next year you somehow lose half of that, you don't starve, you don't lose your house, you don't lose your car, you can still exist. So,
and I agree. I think that's it. I think that's what's missing in that discussion, because people ignore that fact of things. They really do. I don't know. Well, I know you had an hour limit set, so
yeah, I better get going.
Yep. So before you leave, though, you got to plug where everybody can find you, when your next shows are, how often they release, and if they can how much communist anarchist cookbooks you're gonna come up with in the next year.
Oh, damn that. Well, I do, like I say, my Saskatchewan politics show comes out every week. I'm in the middle of processing one I just recorded yesterday. My that's called From Many People's Strength. My solo show, my interview show is called The Mind of a Skeptical Leftist. I think it's important to keep my skeptical roots. I was in skepticism for almost a decade, and I ran a show for 6 years doing skeptical stuff. So I have to stay true to that. And I'm just about to release a new episode talking about community care and mutual aid and what we can do for our fellow people in need right now. So that's coming out right away. And you can find that at anchor.fm/skeptical leftist. My Saskatchewan politics is anchor.fm/from many peoples. And every 2 weeks, I do a show with a panel of great people who are much smarter than me. And that's available at skeptarchy.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cory, for joining us. For everybody listening to the show, the notes will have all of the links to his shows, as well as the links to some of the articles we were referencing. I know normally we bring the articles up, but it was too much going on for me to bring that up tonight. So I do have.
I'm a little erratic.
I do have the links in the description, though, so you can still check out some of the articles we were referencing when we were talking about how much Cory is a fanboy of Trudeau and how he thinks he should become Emperor of Canada for the rest of his life. We'll clone him when he dies. It'll be like Palpatine. Anyway.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Awesome.
Thanks for being
Thank you so
on,
much
Cory.
for joining us, Cory. Well, Keith, it's just you and me now. Just you and me.
I need an adult.
Yeah, you probably fucking do. So I thought I had two segments that I want to cover, but if we only get to one, I'm okay with that too, right?
Okay.
Because there's this COVID, and I found this these articles about AI modeling of like COVID results and different things for people, and I just was like, I think we have to talk about this because I can't imagine that this can be a thing, but I guess, I mean, it probably is, you know? So
I'm still hung up on this COVID thing that you brought up. Like, that's just mind blowing.
Yeah. So there's a new tool that can help thwart mutations, right? And
Right.
it's all, and this is what I have two articles that are very similar. One is specifically about mutations. The other one is about predictability, right?
Mhm.
And so this article right here talks about how AI, and there's a research team at UCI Engineering School that is developing a method to speed the analysis of vaccines and zero in on the best potential, I don't know how to say potential, I guess, predictive medical theory, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that they're going to analyze and take these different mutations and run them through some sort of an AI program. And think of it this way, man. Like, remember when we, I'm trying to think of when we had that, when we did that. We did a show like on AI and mutation, like, you know, like when
Yeah.
we put the words in there or something like that. We did something like that 8 months ago or something. I don't know. But
Yeah, it sounds about right.
but what's interesting is they're going to use this, and there's an actual article from Nature's Research Scientific Reports, and what they're doing is they're applying that the virus can be modeled to 95% of its compounds. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, it makes. I mean, sorry, I'm trying to find this article. That is awesome, though.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
You can't read it though.
Oh, all right.
It's a little too small because it's a screen and a screenception. Oh, there we go. Now I can kind of read it. All right.
Yeah. So they're using a predictive model, and so what they're doing is they're going to take 26 potential vaccines that could work against this virus, right? So they're going to take vaccines from around the world. So it's not just going to be the Pfizer and the Moderna one. It's going to be other ones, right? And they're going to put them and look at how they're binding to the host cells, and they're going to look at what it's actually targeting. And there was an article that NPR posted today that actually talks about a guy that got sick and went to the hospital, I don't know, like 9 times in 5 months.
Jesus.
And got diagnosed with, he just couldn't get rid of it. Now, he had an autoimmune disorder,
Oh.
right? And he was very susceptible. He was susceptible, whatever the hell that word is, to getting the virus. So, but it never went away. And so Anyway, long story short is that's the idea with this is it's actually going to take and create a model, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Then, and having that in our toolkit would definitely give us a fighting chance. And especially if you pair that with like the AI of trying to predict the various mutations that we could see, we might, obviously we're not going to be able to catch everything, but that might give us a better fighting chance to preemptively generate vaccines. And who knows what that technology could mean for other things such as flu, which we're always a year behind for a flu vaccine. We're always just vaccinating against last year's flu. So this could help us be more proactive and less reactive in terms of medical health, which I don't know if you know this is actually a great thing when it comes to maintaining health.
Yeah, why hasn't Canada come up with that before now? Damn it! Where is the progressive Canada?
They're busy making nice speeches.
But yeah, and so think of it this way, like that's why I like this article and why I'm getting into this whole thing is because we talked about RNA modeling with Abby, right? So we had a conversation with Abby about RNA modeling. We went through that whole bit about why that is actually more beneficial to society than this past thing, like you said with the vaccines for the flu. So if they can do this with this, can they do this with other common, like a common cold, right? Could we eliminate or reduce common colds down to almost nothing? Like,
Oh,
I
for
don't know, like
sure.
that seems pretty good, right? To me, I don't like getting sick, so I hate being sick more than most people. I'm a whiny little person when I get sick, so
I'm trying to see if I can find it, because this was something that I had heard. The science communicator and skeptical rogue Cara Santamaria, she was talking about. I'm pretty sure it was her. Was talking about one of the advantages to using things like RNA vaccines. And well, I'm excited for when we get Abby back on, because then we can grill her about this. Is that if I'm recalling this correctly, with RNA vaccines, we don't actually need the virus to generate a vaccine. All we need is the genetic coding, and as long as we have that, we can generate the necessary molecules for the vaccine, which basically means that instead of having to send material across the world, we can just send them the code, and then they can generate it in their labs so long as they have the right materials for it, which would be mind-blowing, because if we had something like this, if say this technology was proved to work and worked perfectly as I've described it, once coronavirus had started being a thing and popping up all over the world, all we would have had to do was get enough samples to create a baseline where we could create a vaccine. We could start vaccinating en masse, and then suddenly we don't have to worry about the entire world shutting down, because we've already beat this thing before it even had a chance to take us out. So I mean, obviously, I'm probably a little idealizing the whole situation, but I mean, if you what's the word? Extrapolate technology, there's a good chance that we could curb any future pandemics like this just by improving our own technology, which would be awesome.
yeah, I agree. I think that's like that's the biggest thing there to understand, because the other article that I had was this one here. I'll bring it into the view stream for you. The other article is a computer can determine whether you'll die from COVID or not. Right? It's like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, you're telling me I can now use AI to predict whether I'm going to die from it? And I think that's important, right? Because if you think about it, that being with what you just said about this modeling and all these other things, they can, on top of that, predict it. So if we actually wanted to invest in other technology, we could predict whether the flu will kill people and these other things, right? And then you could put out parameters. And then imagine taking these two sciences and mixing them together. Just think about that. Like, I can predict it, and I can, show you how we can start preventing it faster.
Man, this would put psychics out of work.
damn it, that's Cory's fourth job. If y'all didn't know, that's he moonlights as a psych. And I'm gonna say this because I want to see if he comes back and rewatches the stream to bitch at me about that.
Jesus.
You know, I'm sorry, I derailed the whole thing. Anyway, but this one says that they can use AI to predict with 90% accuracy. I haven't even drank very much tonight. God damn. Based on somebody's blood pressure, BMI, and other heavily weighted factors, right? You know,
Yeah.
how often they are. So, like, I'm high risk for high blood pressure. I take medication for it. Now, I will say this study was less interesting to me because the first one went through 700,000 candidates. This one only had roughly, I don't know, like 4,000. I don't know where it says it in there, but there's
3944.
Like there you go. Okay. There's that many people that were part of the, the test subject, but I think in of itself, it's pretty promising.
Yeah. So one of the other things that it says, once a person is hospitalized with COVID, artificial intelligence can predict whether the person, should be on a respirator with 80% accuracy. So even that is giving somebody a fighting chance, because then, we're not just putting everybody with COVID on a respirator either. Not that I think we are, because I'm not 100% sure if that's just the common protocol. But that would give us a chance to kind of help figure out how we can, delegate out our those specific resources, because they are finite. And unfortunately, in a situation such as this, we're dealing with a finite resource. And if we can find models that'll help us distribute it and apply it more efficiently, then we absolutely should. It might seem cold and less about, humanity, but at the end of the day, we don't live in a world that gives a damn about our feelings. So if we can do any little thing that we can do to increase our chances of survival, it is a net win as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important here is that, and again, we're gonna move past this part, but that's the idea here is what they're doing is saying data can be processed through this AI. It's secure. It's not going to sell the information, right? That's the first and foremost. It predicts 90% accuracy based on their sample size right now. They also say once a person is hospitalized with COVID, AI can predict whether the person should be on a respirator, up to 80% accuracy.
Yep.
They're looking at BMI, age, blood pressure, whether you're a male or not, neurological diseases, COVID, asthma, diabetes, and heart disease factors as the worst offenders of this, right? So I think this right here is extremely important to that discussion, because if we broaden the search, if we broaden the search, does that allow us to, on the man of the best words, remember that, does it allow us to see the same type of modeling? And what would it take to move that AI system into, let's say, America, who's leading the world with COVID cases per capita, even though Canada's not far behind. Just saying.
I actually haven't looked. You shared that COVID-19 map from the WHO with us a while back, and I haven't checked it in a while. I should do that.
We can look at it. Do you want to look at it?
Can we?
Sure. We could probably find it pretty quickly with COVID.
Oh, hey. Johns Hopkins?
Well, Johns Hopkins
Yes.
is the one I normally, do. Now, they do have a WHO map, too. See,
Johns Hopkins was the one that I wanted to look at, so I found it. Sweet. Yeah, because it was the one that I had saved. Okay, so Canada, we are looking at a grand total of 812,802 cases, as opposed to, oh my God, the U.S. has had 27 million cases. The US has had like almost an entire Canada's worth of COVID cases. And by Canada's worth, I mean the population of Canada.
Well, maybe you guys. Never mind. Moving on. I get. Oops. I get your point. You know, like I think the difference is we have to do is look up the per capita. That's what we did last
Yeah.
time, right? And
I mean,
I don't have time
yeah.
to do that tonight.
That's nearly 10% of the entire U.S. population has had COVID.
Yep.
And I mean, this is cumulative, and that's not deaths. In the U.S., that's been over. Oh, we're at 464,000, which
Where's
is
Canada?
frightening. Canada is at 20,000.
Oof. What's your guys' population up there?
About 30 to 35 million, I believe.
You don't even show up on here.
Yeah, we do. We are like 808,000. Just keep scrolling up.
Oh, it's up. Oh.
Yeah, that.
Oh, you told me like
Right there.
20,000.
I said I was talking about the deaths there. Sorry, I just jumped around. Okay, so Canada has 37.5 million people as of last year, and then the U.S. population is 328 million as of last year. So roughly 10 times the population. Oh, excuse me. Ah. My body's getting old. It's telling me I got to be up early in the morning. Oh God. Yeah. So if you do if we just do with like rough math, in order for Canada to be on par with the United States, we would have to have like 1/10. So for the how many billion? 27. We would have had to have like two, almost 3 million. So fortunately, we're not quite there. And then deaths, we are at 20,000, 21,000. Just round up because we can, as opposed to the 46,000 deaths. That's I can't even show you my cursor. That's just on the right side is where the global deaths is.
Yeah, it's over here.
Yeah. So yeah, Canada is right down there. Oh, up. Yeah, there we go. So, I mean, not great. Definitely not something to be proud of. Because obviously any amount of deaths is too many amounts of deaths, especially when they're needless like this.
Yeah, and I don't think you can get away from all deaths, right? You just get away from some of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's an interesting, statistic, and understanding where it goes and what it goes from here is pretty important. But the last AI thing that I had was there's a scientist that's working on a climate system model to develop a global prediction system for COVID-19. So I know this is very AI heavy, blah, 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 blah. But these are important things because as we start to tie all these things together, what happened? What can we do different? How do we look at all the different ways of life? And so this one, what he's doing is trying to combine epidemiological
epidemiology
data, there you go, and data and models around a perimeter to optimize an algorithm that was proposed to identify that word models constructing of a statistical SIR model. So essentially what he's doing is he's taking all these different data sets and merging them together to say, okay, based on what's happening in our world, based on the climate change environment, how can these things, how does it spread and where does it go from here?
Yeah, it makes sense. That's we definitely have a very interesting time, and not to make it, not to do the whole glossing over the negatives. We do have a very unique opportunity with COVID to learn a lot about the way pathogens can spread, the way they mutate. I mean, I hate to say it, but this is a hell of a test run. And I mean, while we may be surviving, we're not passing the test very well. I mean, we should be doing so much better than we are. But if this can help us, or at least maybe not necessarily us, but say our children or their children and their leaders, help them to understand, and if they're ever faced with something as horrible as this, or Allah forbid worse, then at least they can hopefully stand on our shoulders and not make the same mistakes we did. I mean, hopefully, but who knows? Because we're standing on the shoulders of a pathogen that began at the end of a world war, which was another unique circumstance that we really should have learned a lot from that we didn't.
Exactly. I don't know. Like I said, I thought it felt interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's a shame Hannah's not here, because I think he could have really helped us expand this.
He can, and maybe
Him
next
and his
week
science talk.
We'll allow him to come back in, right, and he can give us his opinion on this. I don't know.
See him like just knocking on his camera, like, "Let me in, guys, let me in."
No,
it's like Dr. Dre.
What's that?
He said it's just like Dr. Dre. He's not dead. He's locked in your basement.
Oh, do you have him locked in the basement?
No, because I live in the basement, and it would get loud.
It'd be weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, just a little. Just turn off those lights over there so I don't see it. But still, he's there because you can hear the scurrying about.
Fair enough. I don't know. As we wrap the show up, we're not going to do. We're going to skip the last segment for tonight since we went a little long there. But we're going to definitely do our quick saves. So the first quick save is from Mr. Keith here. And I don't know what this is, other than this looks like a torture app for me.
So this is an app that I've used this one for years, actually. Back when I was a personal trainer, and I would do boxing drills and other basically MMA type drills. I would use this as a round timer. So it's called Seconds. It's a round timer. You can set it up for either custom rounds or various types of exercise. Or my current major usage, when I don't use it at the gym for my heavy bags because gyms are shut down at the moment, I was actually using it earlier to kind of help me manage my time better, because that's something that I'm not very good at, and I'm working towards being better at, is improving my focus. And by basically what I did using this app was I created a custom round timer thing. So I would have 25 minutes of solidly working on one specific task, and then I would have a 5-minute break, and then I would spend 25 minutes working on either the same task or another task, all depending on what I'm going through, following another specific time management method. But it helped me just kind of narrow in and focus and spend less time like worrying about what time it was, because I could hear when I had to, or when it was break time or whatever. So it just helped me break up what I was doing. And for me, that's actually a really big thing with the ADD. Having something that breaks me out of either a hyper focus or helps hold me accountable and keep track of my ability to focus. It's just gives me a little bit of a leg up, and it's just one tool that I've used. And whether you use it for exercise, for meditation, or for just self-improvement, I thought it was a pretty neat app. There's a free version which will randomly only allow you to use so many of your custom timers, and then it'll lock them for a few weeks, blah blah blah. You can also pay for it. I don't know how much it costs actually, because I mostly just use the free version. I think I paid for it at one time in my life, but that was on iOS, and apparently you can't transfer that between Android and Apple, and it's dumb. Yeah, so there's the paid versus free option, and then you can set the alerts that go off. You can have like a peaceful gong if it's through meditation. You can have the bell if it's through boxing and stuff like that. So if you're looking for something to help you kind of have a little timer going on, give it a look. It's intervaltimer.com or seconds seconds pro in the app stores on Google or Apple.
Fair enough. I don't know. Yeah, I agree with the timer thing. I don't understand the logic in using it for workouts, and maybe that's because I hate workouts. So, and maybe that should be a segment on the show. Maybe that should be part of the show, because I'll be honest, like, the discussion always is when does the line draw from body shaming? Is BMI really even a real thing to some extent, right? Like, I mean, like, I get it, but like, I've been overweight since high school, and I'm like, I was 150 pounds in high school. So, you know, like, and I was overweight then, and I'm 5'11", almost 5'12", right? So, like, I think the discussion, like, I think that could be an interesting topic. I'll be honest, I shy away from it. I mean, because I don't weigh 150 pounds anymore, and I can tell you I gained some weight during the pandemic, because unlike you and other guests who had the ability to go to their own personal fucking gym, or can afford to put something in their house, there's a lot of us that can't do that. Like, if you came to my house, you'd be like, oh yeah, I know why you can't have a gym in here. Like, I know why you can't even have an exercise bike in here, because you had that much shit, Chris, you dumbass, right? So, like, I get people's points, and like, we should have remained active, but I'll tell you what, for me, like, it was insanely hard, other than walking the dogs, right? Because you don't want to meet people, you don't want to talk to people. You can walk the dog, but what are you going to do? Walk your dog 20 hours a day? You know, like, I don't, and even if I ran with the dog, I those of us that hate running, I have flat feet. Like, so I have insane pain if I go for a run. Like, it's, no matter what I do, I can buy cushions for my shoes. I own like $150 pair of running shoes, and it didn't matter. Like, it's inconsequential, you know?
Yikes.
Anyway, topic for another day, I guess. Side tangent.
Absolutely.
Tanner comes into play again.
Hashtag TangentCast.
So, I think the big thing, this showed up on like Data Hoarders Reddit. I don't know why. No idea why, but it was like an article, and some guy's like, I don't know why you're making this article trend. And I was like, I don't either, but it's hilarious. This is a website that archives all of things that Google has killed or is going to kill, right? And you could click on each one of them, and it'll take you to the website for what they are.
I'm sorry, what the hell is Google Dodgeball? Social networking software provider for mobile devices. Oh. Ugh.
I don't know. But what I found funny here, man, was like it was the fact that we had like 294 or 224 apps or programs that they've killed. Right? That's crazy, isn't it? Like, Google has that much authority that they can do that.
They've done that much. I mean, if it is within their software, yeah, it makes sense that they would have that authority to just kind of cut specific products off of their line. We see it all the time. But
this is a lot, right?
Like, oh yeah.
And here, this one stands out. YouTube on Nintendo 3DS.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why? Why? Why now? Why now? You know, I don't know. I don't know.
No, it's not really important now.
I don't know. I just found this was a time killer for me. I thought it was pretty funny. You know, like, what was the Google thing? Oh, Hangouts.
Oh yes.
Oh, it's right there. I'm stupid.
Yeah, Hangouts, because Hangouts on air was what we used to use to like do the broadcasts onto YouTube, the like live broadcasts for YouTube, because I remember using those on the old show. And it just gradually got more and more complicated and more of a pain in the ass to use. And then, of course, by the time the show just really kind of stopped, we weren't really using that anyways. But yeah, it was just it's just weird because you go through some of these and I'm like, oh my god, that's right, that was a thing.
Yeah.
The one that kind of breaks my heart here is like Google Play Music, because I actually did use that for music, because it would do you could pick up like specific genres and themes, and I went through a really weird big band type phase like 6-7 years ago. So I would have lists built around by the Google algorithms, built around like Frank Sinatra and other shit like that. Then there's
you
also
know where it went. You want to know where it went?
Spotify.
Nope.
I'm
I'm going
listening.
to show you. You're not gonna like it.
Uh-oh.
YouTube Music.
Oh, right. And YouTube is gradually losing my favor, because I'm so tired of all the bloody ads, and it doesn't matter. And they play the same ads, and then they'll give you the option. They'll be like, stop seeing this ad. Why do you not want to see this ad? Because I've seen it 12 times in the last 5 minutes. That's why I want to stop seeing it. And then what do? They only show you that ad for the next 20 minutes.
Well, you know, it's weird. Twitch is similar, man. Like Twitch, the way Twitch works is if you're not subscribed to an artist and basically pay them X amount of dollars a month, when you watch something, you get an ad and you can't skip it. You can't do shit. It's a full-on ad. Like at least YouTube, you can say they only make you watch like 5 seconds to 8 seconds of it, unless the whole ad is only 8 seconds long. Then they make you watch the whole thing. But it's like a lot more minimal than the other one.
Right.
Crazy though, right? That's crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I use Twitch for my board game stuff that I watch, and like I played recently in a tournament, and then tonight I played, just kind of in a casual thing. And if you want to watch it on Twitch, you gotta either pay that subscription, or you gotta deal with the commercials. I don't know. It's weird, right?
Jesus.
I don't know. It is what it is. I have nothing else. I'm just kind of an empty barrel of scotch that I've drank 2 glasses of tonight. So, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It was fun talking socialism and communism, I guess. We should have Cory back on to do a communism segment where I don't tell him about my communism beliefs, and then we challenge him to answer all our communist questions. Like in a month or 2, we should do that.
Hashtag ask a communist.
Yeah, ask a communist. There you go. Like I think that's a valid thing, actually, especially in America to discuss. Because you know how many times I get called a communist, and I'm like, no, I'm not a communist. And like he basically just like proved the whole point of why I'm not a communist, like tonight. Like, but I think just doing, even if it's only like a half hour, 45 minutes, would be like super informative on Ask a Communist. Maybe we'll make a new show, side tangent, called Ask a Communist, where we do that like every week. I don't know. No, we're not gonna do that. Now I'm just like thinking out the cuss here. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It's been an amazing night. We'll be back next week with another Cellar Door Skeptics right here on YouTube and Facebook. You can sign up for a Patreon, get after show content, or support the show so that we can pay our bills to all the high capitalist corporations of the world. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, and have an amazing fucking night.